All right, let's all begin. There's a few people that couldn't be here today. I know that this recording will be very popular, so take a minute, take your hand on your heart.
Lights. Trying to get more light here. Okay.
Okay, let me mute you guys. I forget how to do mute all. Okay. All right. So take your hand on your heart. What really differs, and this is really interesting, on this call, Scott, Glenn, Carol, all have done training in drum circle facilitation. So talking about what differentiates health rhythms is two main points, of course. First is how we prepare, how we stage each event, and how we reflect on it. We have a lot more reflecting steps. And then, of course, it's not all drumming. It's the integration of breathing or qigong or wellness activities or, like, it's so cool because Scott does takatina. So it's being able to weave other things into a protocol that's a skeleton that allows people to bring in their own creativity in this arc, this overarching arc. Glenn, you didn't get these little things when we were in Malaysia, but these things are cool. It shows you, here's the steps of the protocol, but you can see kind of how the session goes in an arc. So anyway, yada, yada. Let's begin with a breath, hand on heart. If you guys have your drums, you can join me with an inspirational beat. Let's play a beat of inspiration. Inspiration, inspiration. Inspiration, inspiration. Inspiration, inspiration. And now I have just showed you another little tip, which is how you can facilitate with your drum. Right? So anytime you want to end something while you're drumming and beating, because you're leading the beat, so often we're both. We're the pulse keeper, and we're the facilitator. If you just go to the rumble, and everybody followed my cue. Right? Exactly. So today's call is about inspirational beats, and we're going to also have a minute for some sharing, open sharing from Scott about his recent trip to HealthRHYTHMS training, where he was our TA in helping us. And we had 24 people from lots of exciting places. I mean, a school district from St. Paul, Minnesota, sending the social worker and the guy in charge of the recording. He teaches recording in the school system. And they haven't even started the program. They wrote a grant for $7,000 worth of drums. And they haven't even started yet. And the school district is calling and saying, can you bring it to the whole district? They're like, it's like a huge need. So anyway, I want to make sure I give Scott a little time to talk about all of that. But I do want to begin with this topic. This really is a unique step of HealthRHYTHMS. This is the step called inspirational beats, percussion discussion. And I sent you all a handout. It's really exciting, that has lists of questions by population Yeah, hold that up to the camera. Awesome. If you guys haven't seen it yet in your emails, you'll see it. And I'm going to task our group to everybody send 2 questions to Christine, and then I can contribute to our, this is a scrolling list. I started it 2 years ago, and every year the cohort adds more Inspirational Beats questions to the list, just brainstorming them. Now, just to get everybody on the same page, and if you saw the little video I made to introduce today's session, Inspirational Beats is the step with the most trust, because you put it out there and who knows what the hell you're going to get back. You could get an outburst. You could get silence. This, however, is the step that was added in the second round of Health Rhythms. It was not in the original research. When we were just looking at psychoneuroimmunology, we added this and we looked at the Beck depression and anxiety inventory of mood states and the burnout scale. We knew we had to add a question, add a step that was more kind of therapeutic, counselor style. When Dr. Bittman used to teach this with me, he always used to say, as Mr. Rogers used to say, if you can say it, you can overcome it. Like, to say it is healing. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen the Mr. Rogers documentary. I just rented it on iTunes a week ago. It's so good. It's an American show, Glenn, but it's about a man who really brought therapeutic work through songs. He was a pianist and he wrote all his own songs in the world of make-believe, and he addressed issues with kids because he felt like kids were not being respected and allowed to talk about their feelings. So this step is about, there's nothing to be afraid of. If we can say it, we can overcome it. The second thing about this step is that you ask the question, you ask for a volunteer to answer on their drum before their words. That's the critical thing. And I used to have a postcard on my refrigerator that said, dance first, think later. That's the natural order. Because what we're getting at is a more natural order of affect. That it's more natural to just express myself on the drum before talking, because it takes me to my head. How did you feel about, I was thinking of a question for us today, something like, how do you feel about the rise in climate concern or the extinction of species and some of the trends that are happening worldwide with more and more global disasters, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes? How do you feel about that? Say it on your drum. So I was thinking we would play that game in a minute. So after I ask my question, I say, who would like to go first? And don't use your words, say it on your drum. And the cool thing that you should see, what you should see in Inspirational Beats is you should see a person finding their way. They're not sure at first. And one time I had an experience where I asked a question, what do your cravings sound like? And a woman literally answered without knowing she was answering. She just looked at her hand like, what just happened? She just burst out drumming. And that was so powerful. And then the second question I said was, what is your dream of what your sober life will look like and feel like? Show us on your drum. And this woman gets her drum and comes into the middle. Everybody's watching. And she stands and she takes this deep breath. And she starts dancing, like having so much fun, partying with her drum, dancing around. And of course, what do you think I did? Let's all join her, right? And then when she sat down, I said, if you choose, would you like to use your words to say what you just played? The second way you can do it is to say, do I have your permission to ask the group what they heard in your playing? Much more powerful. So now everybody's owning it. That's why we do that step. Now I was thinking about Glenn in corporate settings and wellness, which is a big movement. What does your burnout sound like? What does your stress sound like? What does it sound like when you feel like you've succeeded in a project? What does it feel like to take on new tasks? What happens when there's technical problems in your day? Or what's the motivation? What motivates you to come to work? Or, what's innovation sound like? I did that one with a corporate team. And each person who answered drummed it on their drum. And then it's powerful to say, can I ask permission to ask the group what they hear in that? Now everybody gets to belong to that rhythm. And they pick up stuff people don't even know they're saying. That's the beauty. The ultimate goal of inspirational beats is this sort of dialogue that happens in the group where you're not talking and you're not drumming. You're just like the traffic controller. Okay, could you respond? Okay, could you play that? Could anybody else want to ask a question? You're just really the moderator. And this is the cathartic step. And I always try to bring it to some kind of closure. Maybe it's a beat of innovation. Let's all drum that. I often have the person who answered facilitate an ending. And then I say, can I have your permission to ask the group what they heard? Any comments back to you? And the person said, oh my God, that's exactly what I was saying. I want to create more innovation. And innovation happens more in a group. I don't like doing it alone, or whatever they say. Then you close. You look for the closure. Who else can relate to that? Why is that important? Is that important in the workplace? So those are two questions I use a lot. Can anyone else relate to that? Is that important in the workplace or in your life? Those are called the transfer questions. When we make sense of it, it's powerful. I was thinking about it, Glenn. Anytime people are jamming in a drum circle, what makes it health rhythms for me is when I stop and I have people maybe play the heartbeat or put their hand on the drum, and I have one person play the heartbeat, and I say, just take a breath and think about what has been important to you about today. What have you experienced in this drum circle? Say it on your drum. This is a great question. Why did you come today? What was your intention? What surprised you in the drum circle? What moved you? What has shifted in you through the drum circle? Play it on your drum. And you get that one person to go, and then they say, "What? Can I ask your permission? What did you guys hear in that?" And the group says, "Release," or "excitement." They're kind of projecting, but we're also getting ideas. And we're shifting it from conversation to drum discussion. Let's all play that together, right? So that's how inspirational beats could be woven into Takatina or Drums Alive or a drum circle, is by asking that question answered on your drum. Just any other reflective question. Can I have your permission to ask the group? Absolutely, that's exactly what I was feeling. Oh my God, you guys are amazing that you knew what it was. Boom. That's your program. Okay. Those are the on the handout. So I'm going to unmute you guys. So any comments or questions?
You were freezing up there a couple times. Was that for everybody? Just me?
Yeah. With that, I think.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. No.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. We missed just a couple little pieces of what you said, but it was okay.
I think towards the end.
Yeah, just very towards the end.
Towards the end. Okay. So at the end, I was saying, even from Drums Alive or a drum circle, you could say, just take a moment and reflect. And my favorite way to do that is rest your hand on your drum, and I have one person play a pulse. And just think about what's changed in you since you arrived. How has this drum circle impacted you? How has Drums Alive impacted you? How has Takatina impacted you today?
Oh, gone again.
Oh no.
Frozen
She'll
again.
be back. She'll be back.
I'm back.
You're back.
You're back.
Well, we heard the question. How is it?
The question is, what was your experience?
Yeah.
I wonder if Zoom is having an overload. Never had that problem.
None of us are freezing up.
No, we
Good.
can still talk when you're frozen.
Yeah, well, we can hear each other and see each other move, but you freeze and we can't hear you for a second. But it's okay.
Weird.
Hmm.
How about now?
Other than that, it's been working great. I was amazed how I was synchronized drumming with you earlier. It was perfect.
Oh.
That was amazing.
So my point is just any time that you want to use inspirational beats in other programs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's powerful. I'm just having a flash of Glenn doing any drum circle and saying, or Scott at the end of a drum lesson.
Yeah.
Think about how this impacted you. Anybody want to answer that question on their drum?
Yeah.
Mhm.
When we get away from the words, we come into the heart. The affect moves through the drum.
Beautiful. Nonverbal.
Nonverbal.
Percussion conversation. Is that what that made it click for me?
Percussion discussion.
Discussion. Yeah.
Percussion discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Karen has joined us. So these are the questions I sent out the handout. So many good questions. Assisted living, sexual abuse, recovery, cancer survivors, wellness, elderly. Here, let me screen share real quick. Right? College students, middle school. So could you guys send me a couple of questions to add to this? Are there populations that I've missed? We don't have a corporate. So I would like to just maybe brainstorm some questions today for corporate. Corporate wellness and team building. What does innovation sound like? What does burnout sound like for you? Anybody else got any ideas?
What does coming to the job sound like? How people
Let's tweak that slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Keep brainstorming with that, everybody. You're on the right track. Something about coming to work.
When you think about work, what does that sound like?
I liked coming to work.
Okay.
What's something you look forward to? What's something you don't look forward to?
Mm-hmm.
What contributes to your anxiety at the workplace, right? Because that's different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What do you look forward to about coming to work?
Going home.
That could be the answer. What about the question about teamwork? Glenn should know maybe some of these things. Like, what other questions could we ask, Glenn? Like teamwork questions. What is your usual role on a team? That might be interesting. Because some people are like the clown. Some people are like the perfectionist. Do you find you play a similar role on teams? And how is that like your childhood? I wouldn't say that for real, but it is kind of true. What role do you usually play on work teams? Yep. What else is important to talk about at a workplace?
Well, even just as simple as how well does your team work?
Say it again.
Something just as simple as how well does your team work?
Right. So what does good teamwork sound like?
Yeah.
What does bad teamwork sound like? See, we like simple, but we want to have something a little digging to get to inspirational beats. What does innovation sound like? What does burnout sound like? What contributes to your anxiety at work? I love that one because that's going to be very different for people. Some people thrive on stress. Some people crash. Some people thrive on, I love when someone compliments me. So what motivates you to work hard or share beyond expectations? That might be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What about how does change affect you?
Beautiful.
I love change. My husband hates change.
Yep. And is there a difference if it's change that you initiated?
No, he hates all change.
Okay.
He has OCD. Change is not his friend.
How does change affect you, and how do you deal? This would be a good one to drum. How do you deal with changes you didn't initiate or approve of? You know, how do you deal with that? That's a good climate change question right there. How do you deal with change, especially when you didn't initiate it? Is there good and bad change? Answer on your drum. Or what's the last time you felt like quitting and something kept you going? Play it on your drum. See, I like to really dig in with these questions. I'm thinking of topics too. Wellness is a big topic. So you could ask simply, what is one wellness strategy you have practiced at work? So then you get, people sharing. One person goes, I sometimes sit down in the back room and take a breath. Or one person goes, I drink a lot of caffeine. I mean, it would be fun to get answers about what's one wellness strategy you have practiced at work or after work, not always at work. What does wellness sound like to you? Sound or feel like? Because everybody's got a different definition of wellness. And just getting that on the table is a big step. What does it sound like to have wellness at work? One of my biggest gigs is usually holiday stress at corporations. Because holiday stress happens in workplace, it happens in your home life, and there's this like holiday crash. So I usually ask things like, what's one strategy you've found helps get you through holiday stress? You can turn it into a strategy conversation. What's one strategy? Good. And Carol, you can look through the assisted living ones and let us know what you think of them.
I did have a question. I have a group that I'm bringing this to for the first time. It's Brain Surgery Support Group.
Right.
And so many of them have, because of the brain surgery, have had strokes. This is something that happened after the surgery. So I have no idea what their abilities are. I am really walking in pretty blind, although one of the women that belongs to it, she's the one that recommended me. She comes to my Drums Alive and she comes to my health. And even she has said, I never thought I could do this. And I can do more now than I ever thought I could do. So she's been very good with the group, letting them know that you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. And letting them know that your brain, you can learn more, you can do more, and this will help you. This will help you. So I'm just not quite sure as far as I don't think we'll do past the shaker. Because I'm really not sure. I mean, maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I want to have some backup things that I think will work. Because as you know, you go in blind, we go in blind a lot. But this one, I'm really going in blind. I really don't know.
Well, I have a comment about the shakers. I use everybody playing shakers for the icebreaker. If they can't do the shaker pass, I just pass out all shakers, and I have a drummer or myself plays the beat, and I say, play your shaker to the beat. And then I'm watching. This is my best assessment moment, right? I'm seeing, can they do it? And if somebody's doing, and I say, just make it a little bigger. Be creative. There's no right or wrong. And then somebody ultimately always does something silly. And I could say, everybody copy Joan. And then there's laughter. Or it might be make it really small.
Oh, you just froze up again.
Builds camaraderie.
Yeah.
And entrainment.
Yeah.
And then I think what I heard you talking about is your theme. So your theme, it sounds like, is overcoming a prognosis or overcoming the limitations of what's supposed to be happening. Because here's this person who came to you and said, hey, I can do it. So maybe your theme is we're capable of much more than we think.
Right.
And that's a great question. What does it feel like to let go of limiting beliefs? What limiting beliefs have you held that have gotten in the way of your healing? Show us on your drum. The answers get better the deeper we dig.
Excellent.
And they have to be clean questions. It can't be just sort of vague.
Right.
It's nice, like when I used to say to the grief support groups, what's one thing you never got to say to your loved one? I mean, imagine that. Say it on your drum. And most everybody has something they wish they could have said, one more thing. And that's the inspirational beats, when everybody goes, I know how you feel. And they come around a person, and one person does it for everyone. We don't have to do 100 people doing the answer. We don't even have to do 3 people. When we've come to that place in the protocol, it simply allows sharing in a safe way. Let me unmute you guys for a second. Because if somebody says, I feel depressed, and they play it on their drum, you guys know that's a breakthrough. We're glad when that happens. You know, if we just drum and we never really get to something deeper, what's the point? And then your job is to sit back and hold space and say to the group, okay. Other comments or questions? Thank you, Carol. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think in hearing you, I felt like I heard your theme. Because it's talking about when you have a disease, it's really easy to get what they call nowadays Dr. Google. Because everybody researches their illness on Google, and there's just like pounding with non-medically approved information.
Right.
So I think to say, how have you found yourself limited in any way? How has your thinking how have you had to change your thinking to improve your healing?
And from what I've heard from her is that fear is what they are fearful that they just won't be able to do it. And how am I going to overcome that? I think they're worried I will expect too much from them. And I think they're worried about disappointing me.
I would use that in the introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Play a little drum, just say, relax back in your seat and feel the rhythm. How does it feel in your body? Just a reminder, there's no expectation here. This is not a drum class.
Mm-hmm.
The whole point of healing means bringing back into your life what's missing. So finding your way to a sound body, mind, and spirit. Which means that even if you have physical challenges, there's still the wellness of your spirit, of your heart, of your mind. So it's a great opportunity to work with this group.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to really track your speed. If people have cognitive delays, you have to sometimes frequently say, everybody on board with what I just said? Can they move on? Checking in. Mm-hmm. And then you might ask the question, what has been the biggest challenge with this change in your life? Or what has been the greatest gift of it? Has there been a gift from this? Or what thinking has had to change in you in order to promote healing? These are great questions. Don't be afraid. The worst possible thing is that no one answers the question. That has happened to me often. And I just have to go, okay, should I reframe that for you guys? Do you want me to reframe that? And then everybody goes, uh-huh. And then you go, okay, think of a time that you immediately had a negative thought and it actually caused pain in your life. So my question is, what positive thoughts have you found that help your healing? The opposite of that. Sometimes you have to really map it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool. All right, thank you for your question. Anybody else? Comments or questions about inspirational beats? Okay, let's do a practice then. This will be really fun. Unmute all. If you're sitting by a blender, please be aware. You can mute yourself now. I've just unmuted you, I think. Unmute all. Yes, okay. Karen is self-muting. That's cool. So let's do inspirational beats on this call. Do you guys have a drum?
Yeah.
You are a drum, Glenn. You are a drum. All right, so take a breath. So how you introduce inspirational beats, also important. This next thing is called inspirational beats or percussion discussion. It's using the drum as a tool of creative expression because a lot of times there's emotions that there's no words for. You don't have to think, just drum the answer. And it's not drumming out words, it's just drumming the feeling tone. So can you think of something that's been challenging this week? And can you show me on your drum?
Are you asking us or?
I'm asking you.
Okay, all right.
Think of a challenging thing that you overcame this week and show us on your drum. Or maybe you didn't overcome it. Think about a challenge you faced this week and show us on your drum. Okay, Carol, do you want to go? Okay, go ahead. Okay. Can I have your permission to ask the group what they heard?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody?
To me, it sounded like pressing kind of, and then some resolution at the end, like it changed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, just hold off for a minute and listen to some people. See what I'm telling you? Mostly in Inspirational Beats, you're like the coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty much all I mean, I got this sense of something going on, something going, and then, whoa, it changed.
Yeah. Glenn?
Not too sure what I got from that at all. Perhaps a little bit of tension, but
Okay.
it seemed fairly calm tension, perhaps.
Okay. Thank you. Janine? Did you hear her answer on the drum?
Part of it. Yeah.
Any comment what you heard from her playing?
I just heard the beginning part of it. No, I
Want
don't.
to hear it again? Carol, could you do it again for the group?
I'm not sure what we're supposed to actually comment on.
What did you hear in this playing? The question was a challenge you faced this week. So Carol, play it again. It helps if we can see your hand. That's better.
Okay. So
Any guesses?
the challenge has a little bit maybe more of a speed to it, a little bit more momentum going, and then maybe there was a resolution and it kind of fizzled out, or it got found resolve or whatever.
Thank you. My comment was you were feeling on the edge and something was banging at you that you had been trying to ignore. Okay, so let's ask her if any of that was correct.
Yeah, so a lot of that was correct. I was trying to help someone else who was in crisis, and there was only so much I can do for them. As much as I want to do, I did all I could do, and it is up to them. And that's it.
Powerful. Who can relate to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you do next as a facilitator? Does it feel resolved? No, right? So can anybody else relate to what that's like when you try to help someone and there's only so much you can do? This is a huge topic. Caregiver stress, feeling impotent, feeling like, at some point I'm exhausted by trying to help someone. At some point they run into the parameters of what's my resources, or what's their need, or what's practically what I can and can't help with. All those questions arise in this challenge that you faced. But I would probably put it back on her. And I would probably say, could you show us how you resolved that challenge?
Oh, let's see. I'll hold it this way.
And in your words, what were you just saying on your drum?
I take care of myself
Mm-hmm.
and play so that I'm not the one who's burning out.
Wow. Beautiful. So let's all join her in that beat of, and I'll mute us all so that we can play this. Let's all join her in that beat.
You don't have me muted, or do you?
Sorry, I'm fixing it. Carol, if you could lead us in that beat that now we know represents self-care, playfulness. I was just about to say find an ending, and she practiced right away what I showed in the beginning of the class, how you can lead with your drum by going to a rumble and a clear ending. So, Carol, very different kind of rhythm, wasn't that, you guys? When you compare this one that felt, as many of us said, tense or heavy, or then boom, 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 tack, boom. I mean, you can really compare those two.
Frozen.
Oh, yeah. You're frozen again.
Hey, we can do whatever we want because she can't see us, right? She just sees a frozen view of us. Oh,
Sorry.
Yeah,
hey, we can do it again. All right, let's have fun.
Like when the teacher turns their back to the student,
Right.
you know, and all the
Exactly.
students.
They leave the room to go across the hall.
Yeah.
You caught us. We're having fun. You got frozen again, Christine.
I know, weird. Okay, but I'm here now, right?
We're unmuted now.
Okay. Scott,
Yes.
what do you think is one person's answer from your drum class? How do you feel at the end of a drum class compared to when you began?
Well,
show us on your drum.
Me? Okay. So the before and after, or just the after?
Both.
After. Okay. Oh yeah. Something like that.
Can I have your permission to ask the group what they heard in your playing?
Yeah.
All right, anybody? Go ahead.
There was a lot there. At first, it sounded like uncertainty and maybe anger and just a lot of emotions pent up. And then there was this big release, and then joy, and then oh yeah, like you found your voice, you found your rhythm.
Does that fit?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people come in and they're just like, ah. And then sometimes they're that way in between, but usually at the end, people are so glad they came and they're feeling good and grooved. Groove and improved. Improved grooved. She froze again.
Yeah.
I see that. I just saw that. I got a little message from Zoom. Scott, how do
Yes.
you feel having told that story through your drum?
Energized, excited.
I know, I see it in you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's, I mean, that's my experience too. Usually if I go to a class or, go to an experience, a lot of times I think people go to experience wellness and work things out and find their groove again, which to me means reconnecting with their spirit, their wellness, their eternal goodness and beingness. And I think we're all learning that and experiencing that over and over again. And, it's just like as you become more confident and competent with your music playing, you don't fall out quite as often, or when you do, it's not such a big deal. And then you just jump back on again. And it's the same thing in life. When things aren't going well, you just have to remember those simple principles that guide us.
I mean, when he was playing, I was thinking to myself, this is such a common theme, from chaos to rhythm, or from disjointed to groove. That's a very universal, isn't it? Or feeling alone, feeling connected, or feeling unsupported to feeling supported, or holding everything in to being able to release it. All of these are very juicy areas for inspirational beats, because people get to feel like they discovered it, because they did. You don't know the answer. And all you have to say is, who else can relate to that? Can I have your permission to ask the group what they heard? And I bet just now Carol articulated it in a way you wouldn't have, right? So that's why it's such a beautiful game, is people find ways to catch stuff you didn't even notice. Okay, any questions about that teaching today? I'll unmute you guys. Any questions about that topic? And like I said, I gave you a really rich handout. Let's keep adding to it. Send me some questions. I'll tweak them for you. It's fun to have a list of good questions to ask. Oh, that's okay, Janine. I think something's going on Zoom today. Like everyone wanted to have a call today at this hour.
Right.
This step is such a critical, it can be a real breakthrough point.
It seems like the point of the whole thing, really. I mean, the point of, health rhythms or wellness drumming is to be well and be inspired and have inspirational beats and have inspired life. And so, yeah, it does seem like a really key. I'm understanding it more and more. Thank you.
Well, there was a training I taught where a guy in the class said, what does self-esteem sound like? What does loving yourself sound like? Oh my God.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That one.
Because we've been focusing on all these cathartic, difficult things. And he said, what does loving yourself sound like?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so profound. Or I remember a workshop where someone said, what's one wellness tool that you want to practice more? And my answer was meditation. And I did it like this. And I still remember that pose. It held me in some kind of loop of accountability. So asking what self-esteem sound like? What does loving yourself sound like? It was so powerful, the answers. So it can be any question. What does the drum mean to you? I'm thinking of Glenn, he's at a training program. What is your biggest fear about facilitating drum circles? What gets in the way of being in the moment? So what's required for this step is curiosity. Bring in your greatest curiosity. I want to understand these people Carol's going to meet. I want to understand. I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
How has your life changed since this occurred? And you're not the one who's going to know the answers. They will answer each other. But just look for that good closing. So everybody, let's all drum that rhythm that Scott ended with. We'll call it being in a groove, right? That it feels cathartic. Let's end with that beat Carol played. Let's call it playful self-care. I love to name it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's call it love myself. I'm lovable, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you name it, you give it that like intention. All right. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Christine.
This time, getting there.
Hey, I have one more question before you go.
Please, we have a little bit of time. What's your
I
question?
have a group of women that they've all been together for a while. They are very comfortable with each other, and so getting them to now they just want to talk. Like they looked at drumming as that first way it got them to open up, but now they're so open that I have to try to get them to drum because they just want to. And I found myself last time where they were having this big conversation and I had to reel it back into the reason we were there because the conversations were going here, there, and everywhere. And I just started playing a simple rhythm. And then when they finally kind of looked, oh, I guess we're supposed to drum. And I said, yeah, let's drum this. But they're now at the point where they don't feel like they need to drum out. They want to just say it.
Okay. My answer to that is you mirror back to them how important it is to balance the drumming and the chatting. It's like it was good when we got you going and now you're chatting and let's try to find a balance. So the way to do that is whenever the chatting, you listen for the theme and you just go, let's put that theme on the drum. Can someone show me a beat for that? That's where Inspirational Beats works. Inspirational Beats takes you from discussion to percussion.
Good. All right.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing group. It probably will never end. So they're very close now. And I'm trying to stop them from just taking over with just talking and chit-chatting. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Or do that.
Janine asked a great question.
Okay.
Can you guys see it? On the chat bar?
What would you say?
What would you
Yes.
say to someone who says they have no idea how to play something they feel? Oh, I get that all the time.
Okay. What do you do, Carol? And then I'll answer that. What do you do, Carol?
I tell them to just ignore the rest of us and just start moving their hand and it'll just come it'll just come. And everybody just says, yeah, you can do it. And it just happens. It usually is something very soft. And it's just that first little tap and then they're fine.
I like to validate. Thank you, Carol. Great answer. You say, yeah, it can seem awkward because you're thinking. So just put your hand on your drum and stop thinking and let your hand answer. We just did this. Scott and I were with this group and this woman goes, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. I can't even imagine it. And I said, put your hand on the drum. And she goes, oh, okay. That's my answer.
That was good.
And it had all this meaning for her. It turned out she'd had this argument with her son and she was tapping on a wall between them and he was tapping back. And she said, oh, I just had this aha. That's what it was like. Who knew that she could have derived all that meaning out of this, right? But I think the best feedback is to say, yes, I understand you feel that way. My recommendation is stop thinking, put your hand on the drum and let your hand answer. I like the don't think anybody's listening, but it's hard for people to do that because we're all staring at them. But actually the truth is, yeah, kids don't have a problem. The truth is 6 years old is our creative peak. Did you guys know that? 6 years old is the creative peak. So yes, a lot gets in the way as adults.
Mhm.
Could you do something like, if that person thought it was awkward and they didn't know what to do or how to do it, could you possibly do something like have them say one word and then or ask them if they would like somebody else to try to play that, and,
Nope.
and with one word, and step the other person and see if that worked for them? You don't think that'd work?
No, because that's you being the one who's solving their problem. You never want to do that in health rhythms. We just sit back and we go, okay, I hear that, but why don't you just let your hand answer? So we're always believing they can do it without anybody helping them. And if they stand there frozen, they go, I couldn't find a way. You say, who else has felt that way?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Could you show them some tips? Could anybody offer them any tips? Say it on your drum, not your words. Here's a rich moment.
Mm-hmm.
Who can't relate to feeling like they can't express themselves with sound?
Mm-hmm.
So I would just turn that into the group theme. Who else has felt that way? Can you show us on your drum how you've overcome that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean, Scott? Your thinking is great if you were problem solving a person, but we're not. In health rhythms, we want them to have those problems so that either they figure it out or the group figures out with them without
Mm-hmm.
any suggestion from the facilitator. We're just the moderators.
Right. When I have someone new join the group, I usually, when we get to that point, I let them know that if they're very uncomfortable, they can just say pass,
Right.
and let us just pass by. And I found that has just been the best way for them to feel instantly comfortable, that they're not going to be put on the spot. It's okay to say pass. And I very rarely get that then, because by the time it comes around to them, they've listened to everyone else and they feel like, oh, I can do this.
And really, inspirational beats is volunteers.
Yeah.
So nobody should be like, I don't want to do it. You know, it should be like someone.
There she goes again.
Frozen.
Yeah.
Burst out in an answer.
Yeah.
And I was like, can the group tell you what they heard? And when people answered, she was like, I didn't even realize that's what I was doing, but that's absolutely correct.
Mm.
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, good session, you guys. Thanks for being here. I'm going to send out the recording. I know a lot.